My name is Amber. I am 29 years old. I live in a small flat. I never liked big places. I like quiet nights, simple food, and warm blankets. I live alone and work in a local store. My life is not rich, but it is calm. Or it used to be. Things changed when I met Frank. Frank was different. He was not like other men. He looked right at me when I spoke. He didn't talk about money or cars. He asked about my day. He asked how I felt. I met him 2 years ago at a friend's house. He was quiet at first. Then we started talking. He said he liked the way I laughed. I said I liked the way he smiled. We talked all night. Soon we were calling and texting every day. I felt excited again. I waited for his messages. I smiled at my phone. After a few months, we started dating. Frank was kind, funny, and sweet. He held the door for me. He brought me hot tea when I was sick. I felt safe with him. I thought he was the one. Before we continue with the story, I'd love to hear from you. Which part of the world are you listening from today? Leave a comment below. And if this story touched your heart, please subscribe for more simple and emotional English stories. After 1 year, we moved in together. It was a small place, but it felt like home. We shared the rent, we shared meals, we watched shows and laughed on the couch. Life felt warm. I was happy. I thought, this is it. This is love. Frank told me he loved me. He said I was his whole world. I believed him, but love is not always perfect. Sometimes love hides pain. Frank started acting strange. He came home late. He didn't answer his phone right away. He looked at me less. I asked him, "Is something wrong?" He said, "I'm just tired." But I knew. I felt it in my heart. Something was not right. One night, I heard his phone buzz. He was in the shower. A message showed on the screen. It said, "I miss you already." My hands went cold. My heart felt heavy. I picked up the phone. The name was a woman I didn't know. The chat was full of hearts and kisses. I couldn't breathe. When Frank came out, I showed him the phone. I asked, "What is this?" He looked shocked. Then he sat down and held his head. He said, "It was a mistake. I didn't mean it. It's over." I didn't speak. I couldn't. My legs felt weak. My face was hot. I felt like falling. He tried to hug me. I stepped away. He said, "Amber, I love you. Please, forgive me." I shook my head. I went to the bedroom and locked the door. That night, I didn't sleep. I cried and cried. My pillow was wet with tears. I looked at the wall and thought, why did he do this to me? The next morning, I left. I packed a small bag and went to my cousin's flat. She made me tea. She held me as I cried. I told her what happened. She said, "You don't need him." I said, "But I still love him." I felt lost. My heart wanted him, but my mind said no. Frank kept calling. He sent messages. He said, "It was just one night. I was drunk. I didn't mean it." He sent flowers. He waited outside my cousin's place. One day he stood in the rain for an hour just to say, "Please come back." I saw him. He looked sad, wet, and cold. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to throw away all the good times, but I didn't want to feel this pain again. I asked myself, can I trust him? My cousin said, "People don't change so fast." I said, "Maybe he means it this time." After 1 week, I went back home to talk. The flat was clean. Candles were on the table. Frank had cooked dinner. He gave me a small box with a necklace. He said, "I made a mistake, but I love you. Please stay." I looked at him. He had tears in his eyes. He looked sorry. I sat down. We ate. We talked. I told him everything I felt. I told him I was hurt, angry, and confused. He listened. He didn't speak much. He just looked sad. When dinner was done, he said, "I will never lie again. I promise." I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I just said, "I need time." That night, I stayed. I slept in the bed while he slept on the couch. My mind was full of thoughts. The man I loved had lied, but he also cried. He also begged me to stay. The next morning, he made me breakfast. He said, "I will do anything to make this right." I looked at him and said, "Okay, one last chance." I gave him another chance, but deep inside I was scared. Something in me whispered, "Be careful." At first, things felt better. Frank made small changes. He called me more during the day. He sent sweet messages. He came home early and helped me with dinner. On Sundays, he stayed in and watched shows with me. I wanted to believe him. I told myself, people make mistakes. Maybe he truly learned. Maybe love can grow again even after pain. I tried to smile. I tried to relax. But inside, my heart still felt a little cold. I did not trust the words as much as I used to. His smile looked the same, but something inside me was different now. Every time his phone buzzed, I looked at it without meaning to. I wasn't trying to be the jealous type. I hated that feeling. But it was there. That fear, that memory, that voice in my head saying, "What if he's lying again?" I didn't ask him many questions. I didn't want to fight. I just watched him quietly. I watched how he moved, how he spoke. Sometimes I told myself I was crazy. I said, "Amber, stop it. He's trying. Give him space." So I tried to be normal again. I cooked. I laughed at his jokes. I let him kiss me. But something was missing. A part of my heart was still broken. 3 months passed like that. Some days were good. Some days felt heavy. I didn't tell anyone we were back together. Not even my cousin. I was scared she would say, "I told you so." I didn't want to hear that. I didn't want to feel weak. I kept everything to myself. I worked. I smiled. I said I was fine. But inside, I kept watching. I kept feeling. And one day, the feeling got stronger. It was a Tuesday evening. I remember it clearly because it had rained all morning. The sky was gray and cold. I came home early from work because the store was quiet. When I opened the door, I didn't hear the TV. I didn't hear music. I heard Frank's voice. He was on the phone in the bedroom. The door was a little open. I didn't mean to listen, but then I heard it. He laughed softly and said, "She doesn't know anything." Then he paused and said, "I'll see you again next week." My hands froze. My feet stopped moving. I stood there, listening to the man I loved, the man I gave another chance to lie again. I didn't speak. I turned around and walked out the door. I didn't slam it. I didn't cry. I just walked down the stairs into the street. The rain was light now, just soft drops on my face. I walked and walked. I didn't know where I was going. I just needed air. I needed space. I needed to think. My mind kept going back to those words. She doesn't know anything. See you again next week. I felt like a fool. I felt small. I felt broken all over again. After some time, I sat on a bench near the park. It was cold and the sky was getting dark. I sat there with my arms around myself, holding tight. My phone rang. It was Frank. I didn't answer. It rang again. I turned it off. I needed silence. I needed to hear my own voice. And that voice inside me said, "Enough. No more lies. No more second chances." Love without trust is not love. It is pain in a pretty dress. After an hour, I went to my cousin's flat. She opened the door and looked surprised. I looked tired, wet, lost. She didn't ask anything. She just opened her arms. I walked into her hug and cried. Not like before. This time, I cried with all my strength. I cried from deep inside. I told her everything. I told her how I gave him another chance, how I tried to believe, how I wanted it to work, and how he broke me again. She didn't say "I told you so." She just held me. She gave me a towel and a cup of tea. We sat in silence. Then she said something simple. She said, "You are not weak. You just loved someone who didn't respect you." Her words stayed in my mind. I wasn't weak. I was human. I wanted love. I gave love. But Frank didn't value it. The next day, I went back to our flat. He was waiting. His eyes looked worried. He asked, "Where were you?" I said, "Out." He tried to smile. He said, "I made dinner." I looked at him and said, "Who was she?" He froze. His smile died. He looked down. I said again, louder this time, "Who was she, Frank?" He said, "Just someone I used to know. We only talked." I said, "You said that before." He said, "It's true. I didn't touch her." I said, "You lied before too." He didn't speak. I walked past him and started packing. He followed me, asking questions. He said, "Amber, wait. We can fix this. Please." I said, "I already gave you one more chance. You broke it." He said, "Don't do this. We can talk." I said, "No. Talking needs truth. You don't have that." My voice didn't shake this time. My hands didn't cry. I felt strong. I felt ready. He stood in the doorway as I packed a bag. He asked, "Where will you go?" I said, "Someplace where I can sleep without checking your phone in my mind." He said, "You still love me?" I said, "Yes, but love is not enough." I zipped the bag and walked out. Outside, the sky was clear. The rain was gone. I felt the cool air on my face. I walked slowly, not because I was weak, but because I was free. I didn't look back. That night, I slept at my cousin's place again. I slept well. No tears, no fear, just quiet. The next morning, I made coffee and sat by the window. I looked outside and thought about everything. About how love made me blind, about how hope made me stay, about how pain made me grow. Frank called many times that week. I didn't answer. I didn't block him either. I just let the phone ring. I needed silence. I needed peace. I needed myself. And slowly, I began to find it. In quiet mornings, in soft music, in deep sleep. I still think of him sometimes, not with love, not with hate, just with truth. He was a part of my story, but not the end. I gave him another chance, and he broke me again. But this time, I walked away, and that was the best thing I ever did. The days after I left Frank were quiet. I stayed at my cousin's place for a while. She gave me space but stayed close. Sometimes we watched movies, sometimes we sat in silence. She didn't ask many questions, and I didn't say much. I just needed to feel safe. I needed to breathe. The flat was small, but it felt calm. It felt honest. No lies. No fear. At night, I still thought about him. I remembered the sound of his voice, the way he laughed, the things he once said. But each day, those memories hurt a little less. I stopped asking myself why. I stopped thinking about what I could have done better. I knew now it was not about me. I gave love, trust, and care. But Frank chose to lie. That was his choice, not my fault. After 2 weeks, I found a small room to rent. It was in an old house, but it was clean and warm. The window had soft white curtains. The bed was simple, but it felt like mine. I unpacked my things slowly. Each shirt, each book, each photo. I placed them with care. I was starting again. It felt strange, but also good. For the first time in a long time, I felt light. I went back to work and told my boss I needed more hours. She was kind and said yes. I wanted to stay busy. I wanted to focus on myself. I stopped checking my phone. I stopped looking at old photos. I started walking after work, just short walks to the park or the small streets nearby. I listened to the wind, to birds, to the sound of my own steps. It helped. It really helped. One Sunday afternoon, I sat on a bench in the park. I watched 2 little kids play with a ball. They laughed and ran, falling in the grass. Their mother sat nearby, smiling at them. I smiled too. I thought, life still has joy. It doesn't stop for one heartbreak. It doesn't end with one mistake. There is always something new, something soft, something kind waiting ahead. You just have to keep walking. One evening, I got a message from Frank. It had been over a month. He said, "I'm sorry again. I hope you're okay." I read it. Then I turned off the phone and put it away. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just let it go. That message wasn't for me. Not anymore. It was for the girl I used to be. The one who waited. The one who hoped. But that girl had changed. One morning, I looked in the mirror and saw someone new. My eyes looked calm. My skin looked soft. My face had a little smile. I didn't need makeup or a dress to feel beautiful. I just needed peace. And now I had it. I still had work to do. I still had pain to carry, but I was walking forward. Slowly. Yes. But forward. I started doing small things for myself. I bought a new plant for my room. I read books at night. I tried new food. I said yes when my cousin asked me to go out for coffee. I even laughed again. Really laughed, not the kind you fake. It felt strange at first, like my body forgot how, but soon it came back. One day, a woman came into the store where I work. She was sad. Her eyes were red. She looked like she hadn't slept. She asked for something simple, but her voice shook. I asked, "Are you okay?" She looked at me and said, "Not really." I didn't ask more. I just gave her a warm smile and said, "You'll be okay. I promise." Her eyes filled with tears. She said, "Thank you." And then I understood. Pain connects us. Healing does too. That evening, I wrote down 3 things I learned. First, love without truth is not love. Second, trust is not something you give twice to someone who breaks it. Third, walking away is not weakness. It is strength. I didn't write this to keep. I didn't write it in a diary or notebook. I just needed to say it to myself, out loud, like a truth I could stand on. I didn't know what would come next. I didn't have big dreams or big plans, but I had one clear hope. I wanted to live a life with peace, a life where I didn't wait by the door, a life where I didn't search for lies, a life where I could be happy, even alone. I still thought about love. I still wanted it someday, but not now, not yet. First, I wanted to know myself again, the real Amber, the one who loved quiet mornings and soft music, the one who cried but stood back up, the one who now knew what she deserved. And so I kept going, one step at a time. No more looking back, no more waiting for someone to change. I had changed, and that was the start of something new. Life moved on, slowly but surely. I stayed in my small room and kept my job at the store. Every morning I made coffee, opened the window, and watched the street below. Some days were busy, some were quiet. But each day, I felt more like myself. I wasn't just someone who got hurt. I was someone who chose to heal. I started noticing little things again. The sound of birds near my window, the warm smell of bread from the cafe across the street, the way the sunlight hit the trees in the afternoon. These simple things felt special again. I used to miss them when I was too busy feeling sad or scared. Now I stopped and noticed. I said thank you in my heart for each small thing. At work, I spoke to more people. I smiled more. I listened when customers shared parts of their lives. One old man came in every Tuesday. He bought the same box of tea. One day I said, "You really love this tea." He laughed and said, "My wife used to make it every night. She passed away, but I still drink it. It reminds me of her." I looked into his eyes and said, "She must have been very special." He smiled gently and said, "She was." That moment stayed with me. It showed me that love can last, even after someone is gone. But it also showed me that we keep living. Even with pain, we keep living. One weekend, my cousin and I went to a small art show. She loved paintings, and I wanted to do something new. The room was full of colors. I walked slowly, looking at each piece. One painting caught my eye. It was simple. A woman standing alone in the rain, her face turned toward the sky. She didn't look sad. She looked free. I stood there for a long time. I felt something move inside me. That woman looked like me, not in her face or clothes, but in her heart. After the show, we sat outside with 2 cups of tea. My cousin looked at me and said, "You look different now." I asked, "How?" She said, "You're not carrying him anymore." I smiled. She was right. I had stopped carrying Frank inside my heart. I had stopped waking up with his voice in my head. I still remembered him, yes, but it was like looking at a picture in a book I no longer wanted to read. One morning at the store, a new man came in. He had brown hair and kind eyes. He looked lost. I asked, "Can I help you find something?" He said, "Yes, but I don't know what. My sister just had a baby. I want to bring her something nice." I smiled and showed him a few things: tea, chocolate, soft blankets. He looked thankful. He said, "I'm not good at these things. My sister usually shops for me." I laughed and said, Now it's your turn to shop for her." He laughed too. His name was James. James came back a few times after that. Once he needed snacks for a family picnic. Another time he came for a birthday card. He always looked a bit unsure, but he always smiled when he saw me. He asked simple questions. We talked about small things, like the weather or weekend plans. It felt nice. No pressure, no worry, just two people talking. One day he said, "You're easy to talk to." I said, "I like quiet people." He said, "Me too." That was it. Nothing more. But something in his voice felt calm. I didn't feel nervous around him. I didn't feel like I had to hide my past or wear a mask. I was just me. We didn't talk about deep things. I didn't tell him about Frank. He didn't tell me much about his life. But we didn't need to. I wasn't looking for love. I was just happy to feel open again. My heart wasn't scared anymore. It was careful, yes, but it was also awake. One evening I walked home and saw a couple holding hands. They looked happy. I used to feel pain when I saw that, but this time I smiled. I thought, good for them. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't jealous. I knew that one day I might hold someone's hand again too. But this time it would be someone kind, someone true, someone who saw me and didn't lie. I took a deep breath and looked up at the sky. The clouds were soft and the air felt cool. I thought about how far I had come. Just months ago, I was crying on a bathroom floor. I was scared, broken, and full of doubt. But now, I was strong. Not because someone saved me, but because I saved myself. That night, I sat by the window with a warm cup of tea. I thought about all the things I used to wish for. I used to wish Frank would change. I used to wish the pain would go away, but now I wished for something else. I wished for peace, for growth, and for quiet joy. I wished to keep this calm heart, to live slow and soft, to never lose myself again for the sake of someone else. James texted me later that evening. He asked if I liked apples or oranges better. I laughed. I said, "Oranges." He replied, "Good. I'll bring you one tomorrow." I smiled and wrote back, "Okay." Just one word, but it felt full of light. I didn't know where things with James would go. Maybe nowhere. Maybe somewhere. But I wasn't rushing. I wasn't dreaming about the future. I was just happy to feel safe in the present. And that was enough. My story with Frank ended in pain, but my story with myself, that one, was just beginning. I gave someone another chance, and he broke me again. But that mistake didn't break me forever. It showed me who I was. It led me back to my own heart. And that, in the end, was the real love I had been missing. So if you ever find yourself in pain, if someone lies and breaks your trust, remember this: you can leave. You can heal. You can grow strong again. And one day, you will wake up and find peace where pain used to live. And maybe, just maybe, you'll smile again. The kind of smile that comes not from love, but from freedom. I hope you have enjoyed the story. Like and comment if you want to hear more soon.